let's get started. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Martin Bonsi. I'm Transportation Program Manager at Clean Energy Economy for the region, CLEER. Today, we're going to be talking about funding for EV charging stations in multifamily housing complexes and workplaces. Thank you very much for joining today. And throughout the webinar, please add your questions to the Q&A feature on Zoom. After I finish my presentation, I will go over your questions and make sure I respond to them. All right, so a little bit more about CLEER. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization located in Carbondale, Colorado. We work to accelerate the transition to a clean energy economy, increase energy independence, and reduce our contribution to climate change. Basically, our work is around ramping up renewables, decarbonizing transportation, and maximizing resource efficiency. We have some programs that are statewide. Also, we have regional programs, county-wide programs, as well as municipal programs. So we really work all around Colorado. And if you want to learn more about the work we do and our mission, you can visit cleanenergyeconomy.net and you'll be able to learn more about CLEER. So the agenda for today, first, we're going to go over the Recharge Colorado program. Then we're going to go quickly through EV and EVSE basics. EV stands for electric vehicle, and EVSE stands for electric vehicle supply equipment, which just means charging stations for electric vehicles. I'll go quickly through that, but it's important for all of us to be in the same page about EVs and their charging stations. And then we're going to go into Charge Ahead Colorado program, which is probably why most of you are here today. After that, we're going to go through some frequently asked questions, and then we're going to finalize with a Q&A. So please share your questions on the Q&A feature on Zoom. So the Colorado Energy Office Recharge Colorado program works to advance the adoption of electric vehicles and installation of charging infrastructure across the state. Recharge Colorado coaches, known as Recharge coaches, provide coaching services for EVs and infrastructure development in every county in the state. Recharge coaches help consumers, local governments, workplaces, and multi-unit housing developments identify monetary savings, grant opportunities, and other advantages related to deploying EVs and charging infrastructure. Recharge coaches help build local stakeholder support for EV adoption and leverage these networks to drive EV sales and participation in available funding programs. So you'll see here a map of Colorado, and there's 5 different colors there. So the territory in orange, that's the territory I cover as a Recharge coach. Those are 14 counties in northwestern Colorado. And you'll see there my contact information. So there's other 4 Recharge coaches, and you can get their contact information at the Recharge Colorado webpage at the Colorado Energy Office website. Depending where you are located in the map, you'll be contacting your specific Recharge coach. So for example, if you're in Garfield County, you would be contacting me, but if you're in Denver, you would be contacting that Recharge coach. So now let's talk a little bit about electric vehicle types. In today's webinar, we will focus on plug-in vehicles. So we won't focus on other electric vehicles such as hybrid EVs, since you cannot plug hybrids, and then fuel cell EVs, since they run on hydrogen and not electricity. So today we're going to be focusing on battery electric vehicles, which can only be refueled with electricity. They only have electric motor or more than one, so there's no traditional internal combustion engine in them. Their typical range is between 200 and 400 miles, and they produce 0 tailpipe emissions. So that's great for keeping our air in Colorado clean and reducing pollution. And then we're also going to be talking about plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, which have an electric motor and a traditional internal combustion engine. These can be refueled with electricity and gasoline or diesel. And typically they have 20 to 40 miles of EV range. So that means that you can do 20 to 40 miles using only electricity, but their total range is between 350 and 600 miles, since they also use gasoline and diesel. So it's important to mention that they produce zero tailpipe emissions while on EV mode, but they do generate emissions while on gasoline and diesel. So plug-in hybrid vehicles are a really good fit for those who commute less than 40 miles on a regular basis, because they can do that commute on electricity and not produce any emissions, but also good for those who are frequently traveling long distances and might not want to have to deal with charging for long road trips. So some battery electric vehicles you'll see on the left, Chevrolet Bolt and Nissan Leaf, those are the most affordable ones, kind of in the compact, mid-size cars. And then you also have SUVs such as Tesla Model Y or Volkswagen ID4 that can also be four-wheel drive. And there's also pickup trucks such as the Rivian R1T and the Ford F-150 Lightning. So there's really an EV for everyone. And these are just 6 models that I chose, but there's many more, and there's many more also coming in the next few years to the market. So for plug-in hybrid EVs, on the left, we have the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid EV and the Honda Clarity. So again, kind of on the mid-size vehicles, but we also have SUVs such as the Ford Escape or the Hyundai Tucson SUVs that are plug-in hybrids. And then we also have, for example, a Jeep Wrangler or a van, even such as the Chrysler Pacifica. So again, lots of options for plug-in hybrids. There's no currently plug-in hybrid trucks, but the market is expecting them to arrive in the next couple of years. So here, just a little bit about the environmental benefits of EVs, since many times you will hear that they're not good because of the battery manufacturing, or they're not good because the electricity is coming from coal. So this is a graph taken from the Environmental Protection Agency's website, which shows the life cycle greenhouse gas emissions for an electric vehicle and a gasoline car. So basically, emissions will vary based on assumptions about the specific vehicles being compared, the EV battery size and chemistry, the vehicle lifetimes, and the electric grid used to recharge the EV, among other factors. So you'll see in the graph, the blue bar represents emissions associated with the battery. So the gas car doesn't have a blue bar, but the EV does. Then the orange bars encompass the rest of the vehicle manufacturing. For example, extracting materials, manufacturing and assembling other parts, and vehicle assembly, and also the end of the life, so whether the vehicle gets recycled or disposed. Then the gray bars represent upstream emissions associated with producing gasoline or electricity. That's the US mix in this graph. And then finally, the yellow bar shows tailpipe emissions during vehicle operations. And of course, we don't see a yellow bar on the EV because they don't produce emissions while being operated. So this graph shows us that over the entire lifespan of the vehicle, EVs generate less than half of the emissions than a regular gas car. So let's take a look now at ownership cost comparison. So in this graph, we can see first owner and lifetime savings from EVs versus ICE, which stands for internal combustion engine, that matches the acceleration of the EV. So here we can see some of the vehicles that we were just looking at before. So we can see the Leaf and the Bolt, the Mach-E, which is a Ford vehicle, and then the RAV4 Prime, which is a plug-in hybrid by Toyota, and then Model 3 and Model Y by Tesla. So you can see in purple the first owner savings, which are around $9,000 more or less. And then in red, the lifetime savings for the vehicle, which are around $17,000 in general, more or less. So this shows that there's significant savings by owning an EV. But I'm sure most of you are thinking, wait a minute, EVs are more expensive up front compared to ICE cars. Why are we seeing such savings? All right, let's take a look at the next slide. So in this slide, we can see on the left the estimated fuel costs for 15,000 miles by vehicle class. So we can see on the left car, then an SUV and a crossover, and then a pickup. On orange, we see the ICE fuel cost, and in blue, the battery electric vehicle fuel cost. And in all cases, we see that fuel costs are less than half for the EV compared to the ICE car. So that explains those savings from before, because there's very significant fuel savings, excuse me, with EVs. And then on the right, that's a graph put together by the Argonne National Laboratory last year. And there we can see the per mile maintenance costs by powertrain. So again, on the right, we'll see that battery electric vehicles have almost 40% reduced per mile maintenance costs compared to ICE vehicles. And even plug-in hybrid vehicles have 10% less costs, maintenance costs, compared to internal combustion engine vehicles. So between the reduced fuel cost and maintenance cost, that's what explains the previous graph on that reduced ownership cost comparison and the savings of owning a vehicle, whether you are the first owner or a second or third. All right, so we're done with EVs. Let's move over to charging stations. So let's start by the most basic one, which is the level 1 that you will use at home. So EVs generally come with a portable charger that plugs into any regular 110, 120 volt outlet. So you'll see in the photo here on the right that there's the typical outlet that you find at home, and then this station just plugs in there, and then you can plug your car and charge it. So that's wonderful, because it means you can plug into your garage, or if you visit your family or a friend or at work maybe, you'll be able to plug in your vehicle at those locations. The caveat is that this is the slowest type of charging, so typically it adds 3 to 5 miles of charge per hour. So this is a good option for overnight charging if you drive under 50 miles per day. But if you're driving more than that per day, or you just have a few hours to charge, then you'll want to look into level 2 charger, which can be found either at home or at public locations. This uses the same amount of electricity as your clothes dryer, and is generally run on a 220 volt circuit. So it's a lot faster than a level 1, because it adds between 20 to 45 miles of charging per hour. And it will get your EV fully charged from empty, which is not very common that you're going to be completely empty, to full in approximately 6 to 8 hours. So this is great for charging at home, charging overnight, charging at work, charging while doing errands or going shopping or whatever. And these can be installed by an electrician in any garage or an outdoor parking lot. And it's good to mention that there are many level 2 public charging stations throughout Colorado, and that many of them are actually offering the electricity for free. So for example, in the left here, we see a charging station from Aspen. That one is providing electricity for free. Then in the middle, we can see 2 charging stations from Silver Plume in Colorado. And you'll see that these stations are actually wall mounted. And it's noteworthy that wall mounted is typically the cheapest way to install charging stations. And the reason for that is that the conduit can be attached to the wall, and you don't need to do trenching to bury the conduit. So you'll see, for example, in Aspen, And in Glenwood Springs, all of these stations, when they were installed, the installer had to trench and maybe break this concrete, and that just means additional costs. So anytime that you can install a charging station on a wall-mounted fashion, that's going to be the most affordable way to do it. And we'll see, for example, these stations in Aspen and Glenwood Springs, these are dual port charging stations. So you'll see that 2 cars at the same time can be charged. And those are the ones that Charge Ahead fund. And those are the ones we will be focusing today. But really quickly, let's just touch base on DC fast chargers. This is the best option for road trips or when driving long distances. They can recharge a significant amount in as little as 20 or 30 minutes. So they're great if you need to go get a cup of coffee, maybe use a restroom or do some shopping, because you'll get a lot of charge in a short amount of time. The charging speed really depends on the station power capability, because we see those stations between 50 and 350 kW, and also on how much power the EV can receive. So here we can see some of these DC fast chargers in Colorado. All right, so this is what we were waiting for, Charge Ahead Colorado. So this is a competitive program that provides grant funding for community-based level 2 and DC fast chargers. The objectives of Charge Ahead Colorado are to improve air quality, reduce transportation emissions, and increase adoption of electric vehicles across Colorado. So this is a wonderful program that we are really lucky to have in Colorado. And I'll just make an emphasis on the fact that it's a competitive grant program. So funding is not guaranteed. But if for some reason you are not awarded, you can reapply. So if your application was unsuccessful, it's not the end of the world, you can reapply. So let's go over the recommended application steps. So number 1, contact your recharge coach. If you're thinking about applying to Charge Ahead Colorado, then your coach is going to be a very valuable asset for this process. Basically, because your coach is going to provide free assistance to you throughout the entire project, and it's going to help you however you need. So really important to contact your recharge coach right away. Second, determine your funding level. We're going to look into that in the next slide. Third, do a survey to gather important information from tenants, employees, or homeowners. It's important to understand not only current adoption, so how many people are driving an EV or a plug-in hybrid, but also if they are thinking about purchasing one next year or the year after. So it's really important to have that information. So we really recommend that survey, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Then the next step would be connect with your electric utility. This is very important because some electric utilities actually provide funding for your project. So you'll be able to get money from them, which is wonderful. They also will be able to provide some information to you to see if your existing electrical capacity is enough for your project, whether you'll need to install a transformer or not. And they will be able to also maybe recommend local contractors that install charging stations. So really important to connect with your electric utility. Then the next step, and this one is optional, you can do it or not, but we really recommend, if you can, getting a free installation estimate from a contractor. So usually they offer this for free, and sometimes the contractor doesn't even need to go to the property. If you're able to get enough documentation, photos of what your project looks like, your electric panel and all of the parts of the project, they might not even need to be there, which would be more efficient for everyone. But even a local contractor might be able to swing by, take a look at your project and say, okay, this is a ballpark of what you're looking at in terms of cost for your project. So it's good to get that estimate. But again, if you don't want to or can't, then you can still apply for the grant and then find that information afterwards. But it's always better to have information sooner rather than later. So the next step would be to complete the grant application. And then you can share it with your research coach before you submit it, so that your coach can review it, provide feedback to you, make any corrections that are needed, so that then you can submit it knowing that the coach looked at it and gave you some feedback. So after you submit it, if you're not awarded, you can connect with your research coach and gather feedback on what happened, why your application wasn't approved. And you can always reapply, so it's not the end of the world if you're not awarded. And if you are awarded, you'll have a short training by the Colorado Energy Office on the next steps. And basically, once you receive the purchase order from the Energy Office, then you can proceed with purchasing the charging stations and hiring the contractors. We recommend getting at least 3 installation bids, so that you can just get different bids that might have different equipment or might have different costs, so that you can really select the contractor and the station that you feel the most comfortable with. So that would be the next step, just selecting that. And then the last but not least, it's actually pretty important that you submit all required documentation to the Energy Office for reimbursement. Basically, if you don't submit all required documentation, you won't get reimbursed. So you really want to make sure you're submitting everything that the Energy Office is requesting, and that those documents are clear and legible. All right. So this table basically shows the funding levels for charging stations through Charge Ahead Colorado. And what I did in orange, so I highlighted the ones that are most relevant for workplaces and multifamily housing units. So you'll see the first one in the orange box is this level 2 dual port. That's kind of like the standard, which the Energy Office will give a match of 80% of total project costs, up to $9,000 per charger. And that's whichever of those two is lower, whether it's $9,000 or 80% of total project costs. And again, the charging station has to be dual port, which means it can charge 2 EVs at the same time. And then below that, we'll see a level 2 dual port, but with an income qualified incentive. This is a new change to the program, and it's an excellent change that raises the match from 80 to 90% of total project costs, and the incentive from $9,000 to $11,500. So again, whichever of those two is lower, and we're going to look in the next few slides what income qualified means. And finally, here at the bottom, this is another recent change to the program. It's an enhanced incentive for disproportionately impacted communities. And in the next few slides, we'll take a look at what that means. But basically, again, the match gets raised from 80 to 90%, and there's an additional incentive of $1,000 for those projects. All right, so income qualified definition. What does that mean? So it means that 66% of the tenants are at 80% area median income or less. So basically, you would qualify through an established program, such as the Housing Choice Voucher, low-income public housing, or if you're, for example, multifamily housing complex is operated by a housing authority, etc. Submitting the documentation, including a land use restriction agreement for verification purposes, is required. So you would submit that with your application when you're applying. So again, that's the income qualified definition, that if you meet it, you will be eligible for this additional incentive. So let's take a look at disproportionately impacted communities. So on the right here, we see a map of Colorado, and we see some areas highlighted in blue. So the link to this map can be found at the Charge Ahead Colorado webpage. And then once you open this map, you can search for an address to learn if it is within an area that is eligible for the enhanced incentive. So basically, you would put the address for your project, and it will tell you whether or not you are in that blue area that's eligible for the enhanced incentive. So once you do that and you learn whether or not you are there, then the next step is, so if the address for your project falls within the blue area in the previous map, You can qualify if you are an entity serving the community. So for example, a library, community center, a recreation center, school, nonprofit, place of worship, etc. Or you are an income qualified multifamily housing complex. So basically, to take advantage of this incentive, your address will have to be in the blue section of the map, and you will have to be either income qualified multifamily housing complex or an entity serving the community. All right, I talked before about a survey. So the survey will help you gather information from your HOA members, tenants, or employees on present and future EV adoption. Again, how many EVs are there? Are people considering purchasing EVs in the short term? That's really important information to have early on in the stage of this process, so that you can make good decisions in terms of how many stations you want for your project. So this survey is optional, but it's strongly encouraged, and you would just attach it to your grant application when you're submitting it, and it really makes your application stronger. It shows the Energy Office that you're taking this program seriously and that you really want to have the best outcome for your project. So the good news is that there's a survey template available online, and you can ask your research coach, and your coach will share it with you. So you'll see that this survey is actually quite short. There's just the first page is an introduction. So the actual questions are just a page and a half. So you can share these virtually, by email to your employees, or with your HOA, for example, or you can print it and share it with them. But basically, once you have received back all the completed surveys, you would combine all of them into a PDF, so that you just have one document, and then you will attach that to your application when submitting it. All right, so this is another change to the program that's pretty recent. So now there's two types of applications, the short one and the standard one. It used to be the case that only the standard application existed, but now there's both. So the short application is for multi-family housing complexes, workplaces, fleets, or entities serving the community that are requesting 3 or fewer level 2 charging stations. So if you are one of those and you want to have 3 or fewer, then you can use the short application, which is nice because, first of all, of course, it's a little bit shorter, and second, because there's no deadline, so you can apply anytime. So whenever you feel most comfortable and you are prepared, then you can apply. And these applications get reviewed every 2 weeks, so that's pretty fast. But then there's the standard application. So basically, all other multifamily housing complexes or workplaces requesting 4 or more level 2 charging stations, and all other applicants would use the standard application. So again, that's if you're requesting 3 or fewer, you can use the short one. If you are requesting 4 or more, you'll use the standard one. There's 3 application windows per year, roughly in February, June, and October. Each application window lasts 1 month, and it doesn't matter if you submit your application early or late, they're all considered the same. So as long as you submitted it while the application window is open, you're good. The decisions on these applications might take up to 8 weeks, so just something to keep in mind. But basically, yeah, important to distinguish whether you're going to be using the short or standard application. And if you have any questions, you can just ask your research coach, and you'll get help. All right, so there's an ADA compliant parking space requirement with Charge Ahead Colorado. So awardees are required to incorporate accessible design standards into their charging station projects. Guidance on accessibility for charging stations can be found on the application guide, which is at the Charge Ahead Colorado webpage. So Charge Ahead Colorado requires that 5%, but no less than 1 parking space incorporate accessible design. So what that means for most projects that are a handful of charging stations, you will just need one parking space to follow that accessible design standard. So let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, so here we have a photo of an ADA compliant parking space. So you'll see that the parking space is actually a little bit wider. It's 11 feet wide instead of 8 or 9. And there's also an aisle that's 5 feet wide. So in this case, we have 2 parking spaces that are ADA compliant. But again, for most projects, you will just need 1. So let's take a little bit more of a look here. So we'll see these are the 2 ADA compliant parking spaces we were just looking at. And here, this is just a regular parking space. So again, once you meet the requirement, the rest of the parking spaces don't need to be ADA compliant. So you'll see here in this photo on the right that actually there's existing, in this case, ADA compliant parking spaces, but the charging stations are not placed there. They're placed over here. And you'll see also that these ADA compliant parking spaces are not only for ADA patrons. They are just wider. So actually they need to be reserved for EV charging only. And so you'll see here the painting says EV, so that to make sure that only EVs are using that. So again, just a little wider of a parking space that's ADA compliant, but it needs to be reserved for EV charging only, and not for ADA, such as these ones. Okay, let's take a look at some options to meet this requirement. So there's a few options out there, and the most common one and easiest one is to combine 3 regular parking spaces into 2 parking spaces. The pro about this is that it's really easy. You just have to, repaint the parking spaces and you're good to go. The con is that you'll be losing a parking space. But again, you'll lose a parking space, but you'll get 2 parking spaces that are ADA compliant. It's going to be either 2 or 1, depending on the dimensions of the parking spaces, but you're going to get at least 1 parking space that's ADA compliant, so you'll meet that requirement from the Energy Office. And again, that requirement, it's non-negotiable. It's really important to have this accessible design into at least 1 parking space. So it's really important that you look into how to meet that requirement. The second option would be installing the charging stations in an unimproved parking lot, such as we see here in the photo. So you'll see this is a pretty rural location. There's not a lot of competition for parking spaces, and you'll see even there's a charging station here that's a little bit separated from the rest. So there's enough parking space there for the charging station for meet the ADA compliant parking space, and even though they're not marked, it's still being met because there's plenty of space. So, and the third option, and this is kind of like, on a case-by-case basis, but this is a parking lot in Carbondale, and you'll see here's the aisle, and here you have an ADA parking space, but you'll see that here there's no ADA requirement. They're not reserved for ADA. So basically, you couldn't place the charging station here, but what you could do is place the charging station here, because this parking space could use this aisle, providing ample space for a person in a wheelchair to move around the car, access this aisle, access the property, access the charging station. But again, if this parking space was ADA already reserved, then it wouldn't meet the requirement. So if you have any questions about how to meet this requirement, you can contact your coach and they can help you, usually with a few photos, or there's ways to solve those problems, just to make sure that you meet that requirement and you will get reimbursed by the Energy Office. All right, so let's move into some of the frequently asked questions, because we get them all the time and you might have them in your head as well. So can you restrict access to charging station to a charging station funded through Charge Ahead Colorado? The answer is yes. You can restrict access to tenants, employees, and owners only if you want. So, for example, in a multifamily housing complex, if you don't want the general public using the charging station, then you can exclude them. You can have a sign that says, charging and parking is only for owners or tenants or guests. So that's good. In some cases, if that's what you want, you can restrict access. Next question is, can I purchase the stations before I'm awarded? The answer is no. You need to be awarded and receive a purchase order first. That's super important. So you cannot purchase the stations or hire an installer before you get the purchase order. Otherwise, you're not going to get reimbursed by the energy office. Next question, can I also use incentives from my electric utility? The answer is yes. So you would deduct those incentives from the electric utility from your total project cost, and then the remaining balance would be eligible for the CEO funding. So again, that's why it's so important to connect with your electric utility, because if they have incentives, you will be able to stack them to your project. So really making it the financial case to install those stations. All right, next question. Can I install a charging station on a designated parking space? The answer is no. Charging stations funded through Charge Ahead Colorado must be installed on non-designated parking spaces and be accessible to all residents. So basically, for example, in a multifamily housing complex, if you have a parking space that's reserved for unit 1 and the next one for unit 2, you couldn't install the charging station there. But for example, if you had guest parking spaces that were not designated to particular units, then you could install the stations in those guest parking spaces. So something important to keep in mind. Another question is, what costs are eligible for funding through this program? So those costs are the charging station and the related equipment, construction materials, permits, construction labor costs, utility and electric upgrades, signage and paint, networking, subscription and activation fees, the warranty cost. It's important to know that there's a 5-year warranty that's required with this program, but you can include that as an eligible cost. Shipping and tax, those are all eligible costs. So you'll see that it's very comprehensive. It really includes all of the costs that will take part in this project. So again, we're really lucky to have this program in Colorado and really helping make the financial case to install these stations. All right, so that's it for today. That was my presentation. Thank you very much for joining us today and for listening. And so now I'm happy to go over questions. If you have comments or if you have feedback, I'd love to hear it. So the way we're managing that is through the Q&A feature on Zoom. So if you can just put your question, your comment, or your feedback through that feature, I'm going to go over it now. And there's my contact information in case you have questions afterwards. But all right, let's start. So William asks, what is the first owner time period and what discount rate are you using for future savings versus increased initial cost at a battery electric vehicle? All right. Let me take a look at that. Let's go back to that slide. Okay. Here we are. So what is the first owner time period? So actually, though, that's a great question. I will have to go back to the EPA website to look into those details. Yeah, because I didn't take note of those details. So I'll have to go back to the EPA website and take a look at that. But William, I can respond to that by email. Thank you for asking that question. I'm sorry I don't have the answer, but my idea was to just provide a really quick update on EVs, since most of the information that I wanted to provide today was around Charge Ahead Colorado. So thanks about that. Okay, Ryan, are you willing to share this slide deck or the recording link? A coworker was unable to attend. Yes, so the recording is going to be shared, and we're going to also post it on YouTube. So I'll be sharing that recording with you. And then if you want the slide deck, you can email me, and I'll be happy to share it with you. And again, I'm a research coach. There's other research coaches, and we're all willing to help you and really help you through the whole process. So, but yes, I will be sharing those, Ryan. So, Tammy, the short application turnaround time. We have an application turned in October 15 that we have not heard back on yet. So, the short application is actually the first time that has been implemented. So the Energy Office is taking some time on providing, a response to those. Tammy, I mean, thank you for your question. It's the end of the year. There's really a lot going on in the Energy Office, and I'm sure they're taking a little bit longer because this is all new for them. They also have a new system to review this application. So we have to be patient and just wait a little bit longer. They will get back to you as soon as they have those decisions made. Okay, so Matt Lerman from the Energy Office. Hey, Martin, great presentation. A couple notes if you want to add them. One, the next standard round has been announced. It will open January 17 to February 17. So that's for the standard application. Now you know January 17 is going to be open. Thank you, Matt, for that. Second, if you qualify for the $1,000 disproportionately impacted adder, that is per station, not just $1,000 total. Okay, that's a great comment, Matt, because yeah, if you are applying for 3 charging stations, that will be $3,000 extra that you will be getting for that. So thanks for that clarification. For multifamily housing and workplaces, for the short application, they are only eligible if charging is primarily intended for employees and residents. So even if a coffee shop is a workplace, if charging is primarily intended for the public, they would need to utilize the standard application. Thank you so much, Matt. You reminded me this today, and I had it on my notes, but I skipped it. But that's a really important caveat to mention that the charging is primarily intended for the employees or residents. So in this example with the coffee shop, if no employee has an EV or is expecting to buy, that charging station will be used by the general public, by the clients. So in that case, you will have to go through the standard application. Whereas if it was, for example, an office that had already several EV owners working there, and the charging station will be primarily used for those employees, then you can use that short application. Thanks so much, Matt, for that. All right. So Matt here is clarifying that they are delayed on the first short application round and will be getting awards notice back next week. So Tammy, there you go. That's your answer. Thank you for your patience. Hector, are the coaches providing guidance on which EVSE products to use, and do they have specific relationships already or set requirements? That's a really good question, Hector. So basically, the coaches, we are brand agnostic, so we won't recommend a product over another one, but we will share information on the products that we've seen in our community that have been working well, or information that we've gathered from research that we do. So we will be providing recommendations. We usually have also met with some of these companies, so we know more about their products. And so if there's any companies here, I encourage you to reach out to research coaches so that they have your products in the radar. There's also a database at the Energy Office website that has a list of vendors. That list is pretty extensive. but that's why it's good to connect with your coach so that they can recommend, you know, a handful, so that ultimately you will be the one making that decision. So thanks for that, Hector. Okay, a comment here from Matt. We are creating a new orientation process that is more convenient for applicants, which is the reason for the delay. It's okay for the general public to use the station, but it's about the primary intent. Yeah, so again, that's for the example for that office, for example, that has many of the people who work there have EVs, and they're, you know, the station is primarily going to be used by the employees, and it would be the same if it was a multifamily housing. But if there's someone who doesn't work there and, you know, occasionally charges the car, that's fine. But what we're looking is the primary intent. So who's the primary user for that charging station? If it's tenants, homeowners, or employees, then they will be, you can apply for the short application. But if it's not, then you should just go with the standard. And, you know, the standard application is just a little bit longer and you'll have to wait for the window, but it's totally fine. It's the way it's been for the last few years, so there's nothing wrong about the standard application. All right, well, those were some really good questions. So last chance to add any questions, comments, feedback. Otherwise, we will be wrapping up. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. Feel free to reach out if you have more questions or if you want a copy of the slide deck. And again, the recharge coaches are here to help you through the whole project. We want to have more charging stations. We want to support multifamily housing complexes and workplaces having these stations, mostly because most of the charging will happen at home or at work. So it's really important that you know, this program exists and allows those stations to be installed at a very discounted price. So Hector, great presentation and valuable information. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Hector, for your questions and for attending today. So again, thank you very much. My name is Martin Bonsi. Here's my contact information. And again, I encourage you to visit the Colorado Energy Office website and look for Charge Ahead Colorado or Recharge Colorado to learn more about those programs, and reach out to a recharge coach if you are interested in pursuing this opportunity. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.